Tilea's Troubles, Part 112. For the Love of Hearth and Home. Prequel to the Fight at Sersale. City of Alcente, Spring 2404. Most folk in the city considered Captain Hector Perdigon's soldiers to be scum, the very worst kind of mercenaries, commonly presumed to have been unwanted in whichever army they originally served, either because they refused to obey or to fight. Unless, that is, they had simply run away. Several spoke with a Pavonan accent, presumably having left that impoverished city to seek paid service. But their other accents revealed that they hailed from every corner of the old world, not just Tilea. A good many had accents unidentifiable to most Tileans. Some came from the darkest corners of the border princes, others had fled defeat in some empire civil war, and a good few were Astalians who, like many of their kind, had flitted from contract to contract in Tilea. It was generally believed that a good half or more had been exiled from their own lands. Reluctantly, however, the citizens could not claim that Perdigon's men did not know their business, or that they were ill-equipped to go about it effectively. The soldiers had been employed by the VMC, whose clerks were experts at getting their money's worth. Had they been in rags, bearing rusty blades, then they would have been bought cheap, with a particular economy in mind. But these men were clad in plate armour from head to heel, with a healthy vigour about them. The company must surely have paid dearly for them, and to equip them. They would not bear such expense if the mercenaries were not worthy of it, which should have given the lie to the common opinion of these men. VMC officers did not throw gold at a bad investment. The truth of their origins was, of course, known to the VMC's clerks and to the men themselves, but neither felt any compulsion to reveal it. The citizens consoled themselves by thinking of the possible alternatives. General Valkenburg could have left Ogbut and his brutes as a garrison force, and no one wants ogres swaggering the streets. Or he might have left no garrison force at all. Either choice would have been far more dangerous for the people of Alcente than Perdigon's company. The VMC's main army in Tilea was composed almost entirely of mercenaries. Even those recruited in Marienburg, the trading company's far-flung home, were not pressed to serve a local lord, nor had they volunteered in their city's militia. Rather, they had been hired to serve a mercantile company as part of a joint stock enterprise. In effect, they were purchased, just like the company's ships and supplies. A good number of the soldiers had been recruited in Tilea, and as such, they had every reason to serve willingly in an army fighting first against Lord Kernag's Wag and now the vampires of the north, defending their homelands from such evil foes. But even they could not deny that they were serving businessmen, rather than the nobility or some city-state's elected council. Indeed, the Tilean lawyers who drew up the contracts under which they would serve had utilised a combination of condottieri contracts and the bonds signed by caravan and warehouse guards. They themselves might have hearth, home, and a noble cause in mind, but the merchant adventurers who commanded them were motivated solely by profit. Perdigon's regiment was not part of the company's main army, having been raised specifically to bolster the standing militia force of Alcente, while General Valkenburg marched to the far north of the peninsula. So far, Perdigon's men had done their job well, if simply maintaining their full strength and readiness, while nothing much happened, counted for anything. The citizens had learned that as long as they stayed out of their way, the mercenaries kept themselves to themselves. Several inns had become theirs, whether or not they were officially lodged there. And in truth, the citizens, even the city's Tilean militia guard, were glad they were there, considering the proximity of an army of Sartosan pirates ravaging the realm's smaller settlements to the west. This morning, however, something had changed. Perdigon's men were frantically busy preparing to march, while the captain himself was striding through the streets with several of his lads, as if on a mission. People watched from the windows or pressed themselves back into doorways while he passed, and everyone knew that his activity did not bode well. The city's bells were quiet, however, which made some think it could not be a real emergency. Captain Perdigon knew the truth, of course. The bells were being kept deliberately quiet to maintain a necessary surprise. The Sartosan pirate army was nearby, and alarm bells might encourage them to hurry. The captain knew where he was going, and before long he found exactly who he'd been looking for. The militia's watch patrol with their current commander, being a handful of crossbowmen and halberdiers doing their rounds as the militia had done for time immemorial.
"Ho! Sergeant Ivo!" barked the captain. "Gather up, you lads. You're marching out with us at noon."
"What?" answered the sergeant. "Look you, Captain, maybe you're marching out, but our job is to stay here and defend the city, so we ain't going anywhere."
"You'll be defending the city when you march out. Now make haste."
Sergeant Evo snorted, as if he found what Perdigan had said very funny. He looked around at his men, rolling his eyes as if to say, "Get this fellow," then fixed his eyes on Perdigan.
"The problem that comes to mind, Captain, is that I can't see any way in which we can defend this city if we are not in the city to defend it."
Which was all the sergeant could see, what with the Captain Sallet and Bevor covering the rest of his face.
"You think that you and your militia can hold these walls against an army?"
"Not if we are not on the walls, no,"
said the sergeant, with a mocking lilt. Perdigon chose to ignore the tone.
"You would not last an hour," he said. "The stone is strong, but with only your petty militia to hold it, it is no defence, merely an inconvenience."
"Look you,"
said the sergeant quickly, and in a more serious manner.
"We live here. Our families are here. If we leave, then there will be none but boys and old men to guard the walls. We serve the city. That's what we all agreed to. And that's all we agreed to."
From behind he heard Adelchi shout,
"Aye!"
The sergeant glanced back at the lad, thankful, and warmed somewhat to his theme.
"We're not soldiers to be marched off to war. We're citizens in arms, ready and willing to defend our homes. We will obey any order to that end. But we cannot leave the city, and we will not leave the city."
The sergeant glanced back, but the lad was quiet this time. Perhaps Adelchi did not like the fact that he had been the only one to shout before.
"You've sworn an oath to defend the city," said the captain, "and now you must do so by marching out. The Sartosan filth have burnt Mintopua and razed Matola. Now they march on Sersale. If they burn that, then your proud city will be surrounded by wasteland on all sides."
"Ah, but our city will stand," said the sergeant, thinking quickly, "and crops can be resown."
Someone behind him muttered something about the vines not coming back in a hurry.
"Consider, fool," said the captain. "The Sartosans will not stop there. You think they'll complain at how heavy their loot has become and decide enough's enough? Their greed only grows with the taking. They know there's much more to be had from the city itself. Now they think you Elsentians are weak, and with good reason. They won't fear assaulting the walls if they know you all to be cowards."
You take care what you say, Perdigon,"
said the sergeant, his voice strained by an equal measure of panic and hurt pride. A dark cloud drifted overhead, as several hands clutched a little tighter to hilts. The crossbowmen suddenly regretted not having spanned their crossbows. From behind, Adelchi spoke again, and the sergeant wondered if he was the only one present who felt any sort of confidence.
"Maybe it's you who's afraid,"
declared the youngster.
"You've been ordered from the city, I bet, and you don't want to go alone."
"I'm not afraid of Sartosans," laughed the captain. "I've faced far worse than them. Enemies that would loose your bowels on sight, boy. The truth is, I like drinking wine here in Alcenti and sleeping on soft beds. In fact, I'd like to do that some more. And if we don't take on the Sartosans right now, then all that will be lost. Such a shame."
Then, like an afterthought, he added,
"Oh, and of course your sisters will be raped, your homes burned, and you'll be chained in a galley for the rest of your days."
"Well,"
said the sergeant, shaking his finger at the captain,
"I say, if you want to keep what you have, then you should stay and help us hold the walls."
He swung his arm to point towards the nearest city gate.
"They outnumber us, yes? Well, see, I say the walls will even the odds, and General Valkenburg, he could be back any day. Just the sight of his army would send the Sartosans running. If we go out there now, we could end up fighting unnecessary."
"Dying unnecessary," someone muttered from behind.
"The general is hundreds of leagues away. Chances are he doesn't even know what's happening here. Look, we have orders, and you have orders. This is my last offer of advice, and then there'll be no more talking. The militiamen of Sersale have mustered and called for the city's help. They intend to make a stand, and will die to a man if we do not help them. Now, I don't care much for them, as I don't know them, but they're your cousins and countrymen. Do you want them to die?"
"No, but see,
stuttered the sergeant uncertainly.
"And the road wardens are riding in force from Pavazzano, while we have Captain Hiddink's pistoliers here in the city. You think their skills in battle are best put to use on the walls?"
"Well, no," admitted Sergeant Evo.
"This is your one and only chance to save the city. Do you understand? Wait any longer, and that chance is gone. Right now, we can muster us, you, the men of Sersale, and all the horse left in the realm, and bring it all to bear as one. The general isn't coming in time, and if left to their own devices, the men of Sersale and the road wardens will all die. All together, though, we can put on a show of force that will make the sea dogs think twice about fighting."
"Well, if you put it like that,"